I heard the knock just after midnight. 3 soft taps that didn't echo like the usual storm-blown debris scraping the door. I lived alone at the edge of the outpost's outermost ring. No one came here by mistake. My house was a relic, just like me, left behind after the last wave of colonization pulled most settlers toward the inner zones with better shielding and power grids. I didn't get visitors. Not anymore. I opened the door with a pulse pistol grip behind my back. What stood there wasn't what I expected. She was tall, maybe 7 feet, with silver-gray skin and a layered garment that looked half ceremonial, half protective gear. Her eyes glowed faintly gold. 2 small figures stood behind her, half hidden by the folds of her robe. I recognized the fear in their posture. They were children. She stepped forward before I could speak. "My name is Alix. I need your help," she said in perfectly clear Terran standard. "My children are half-human. Their father was one of yours. He died saving me. I was told you could help." She didn't flinch as I raised a weapon, just slightly. The kids did. Her voice didn't crack. Her hands remained visible. This wasn't a robbery. This wasn't some random plea for aid. Her words were too precise, her expression too calm. And that was exactly what put me on edge. "You were told wrong." I said. "No," she replied. "He spoke of you. Before he died. He said if I ever made it to this planet, you might listen." I studied her face, but the anatomy was too alien to read for lies. Something about her tone made me pause. Not desperation. Certainty. "How do you know his name?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. "Corporal Dean Harlan, 8th Expeditionary Force, 3rd Division. You serve with him." The pistol dropped a few inches. That name hadn't been spoken in years. He died in a black ops mess no one acknowledged. Last I'd heard, he went MIA deep in contested alien territory. The whole operation was scrubbed. The official report said he was vaporized along with the team. No bodies, no comms, no follow-up. Yet here she stood, 2 children clinging to her robe, speaking fluent Terran, eyes shining like some nocturnal predator. But the name, the date, the voice, they all matched. I opened the door and stepped aside. Inside, she sat cross-legged without being told. The children curled up near the thermal vent, watching me with a mix of wariness and curiosity. Their skin was lighter than hers, almost pale silver, and their eyes didn't glow. But their faces, they weren't completely alien. They had human traits. The older one's nose, the younger one's mouth, subtle, but there. Proof? I asked. She reached into her satchel and placed a hardened data drive on the table. I recovered his tags. DNA record embedded. Yours is still registered, yes? I didn't answer. I inserted the drive into my terminal and waited. Security flared. Compatibility confirmed. My ID pinged off the server for access. Then it hit. DNA match detected. Partial record aligned. Shared markers. One of the kids was a confirmed descendant of Dean Harlan. I stared at the screen, unmoving, as the system displayed genome overlaps and cross-references to long-classified expedition logs. He was telling the truth. Back then, during those hazy drunken rants he muttered after missions, he said he'd found someone worth dying for. We thought he meant a bottle or a ghost. Turns out he meant her. "What do you want from me?" I asked. She answered without pause. "Safety, guidance, and if you're willing, a future for them. One not lived as fugitives." I didn't speak. The wind howled outside, and I watched the system cycle through medical files embedded in the tags. Wounds logged, injuries patched. His vitals were recorded up to the day of his death. 2 days after his last known position. He lived longer than they said. Long enough to leave something behind. I'm not good with kids. They don't need good. They need alive. The younger one fell asleep near the heater. The older's eyes tracked me. Alert, measuring, like a soldier behind a child's face. "They're not dangerous?" I asked, watching the child. Only if cornered. They inherited more than his blood. That didn't calm me. That intrigued me. I poured water and handed her a steaming cup. She didn't sniff it. Just drank. No fear of poison. No posturing. She trusted me. I didn't know why, but it irritated me more than it should have. How did he die? Shielded a blast meant for the three of us. Took the shrapnel. Burned alive before I could reach him. And you made it all the way here alone? Not alone, she said, brushing her fingers across the children's heads. But yes, we were hunted. He was marked. So are we. I leaned back and stared at the ceiling. My hand still remembered the grip of a rifle, the weight of armor, the bone-deep ache of cold nights spent in foxholes on dead moons. And here she was, offering to pass back to me in the form of two half-breeds and a story no one else would believe. I should have told her to leave, but I didn't. Instead, I scanned the tags for every mission report Dean filed. I cross-referenced battle logs. He'd gone silent for weeks before they declared him Plea. And in that window, he'd fought an entire battalion alone, buying time for civilians, her people, apparently, to escape. No medals, no report, just vanished. I checked the kids' vitals next. No immediate threats. Heart rate's a little low. Signs of starvation, fatigue. But the kicker? Enhanced cellular resistance to radiation. Regenerative markers. Neural pathways lit up like they were born to process advanced stimuli. Hybrids. Strong ones. He didn't just fall in love with an alien. He created the next evolutionary crossroad. Why now? I asked, because the ones who killed him are looking for us. Who are they? Not for my world. Not yours either. But they don't want the truth of what he did to exist. And they don't want these children to survive. If they do, others might follow. I turned to the weapon rack. My gear was dusty, but functional. My instincts hadn't dulled, just quieted under layers of civilian routine. Now they buzzed like a waking hornet nest. You brought war to my doorstep. No, she said quietly. War brought us to yours. We just chose to knock. I let that hang in the air. She got up, picked up her youngest, and laid them gently on the spare cot without asking. The older one took my blanket and curled up in a corner like they'd done it before. The house was silent, except for the hum of the heater and the soft clicking of her clawed fingers folding the blanket over them. You said you'd help, she said. Not a question. A memory. I nodded once. I didn't remember saying it. But if Dean told her I would, then he must have known something I didn't. I locked the door and sat down with my old armor. Tomorrow, I'd find out who else knew they were here, and whether they planned to knock or blow the whole place down. Certainly. Below is Section 2 of your faceless HFY sci-fi story. I will warm your bed, human. My children need a father. The alien widows plea at my door. Written with high quality, minimum 5,000 words. No repetition, no fluff, and without any headings or scene labels. The moment the sun rose over the frost-ridden hills, the sensors pinged. A low, rhythmic pulse crept into the room from the floor. My old detection array still functional after all these years. Alex reacted first, eyes narrowing, body already turning toward the children, who hadn't stirred. I stepped to the panel, confirmed the signal. Movement. For targets, low thermal signatures. East quadrant. Spread pattern indicated sweep, not direct assault. Scouts. I suited up in seconds. The armor hissed with age. Plates clicking into place around muscle and memory. Alex placed her hand on the hilt of a hidden blade inside her robe, wordless. I handed her a short-range pulse shield and a retinal-linked emitter. She accepted both without question, flicking them online with expert familiarity. They hadn't followed her here by accident. This was planned. I stepped outside to the rear hatch, wind biting against exposed sin skin. Snow crunched underfoot as I moved the ridge. The scouts were cautious. Not military. Too careful for soldiers. Too spread out for raiders. Mercenaries. The kind paid to retrieve rare assets, not make noise. I flanked the closest, his armor matte gray with adaptive overlays. I'd seen that design before, back in the outer rims, during the Umbra raids. I broke his neck before he saw me. Fast, clean. His pulse rifle dropped with a soft thud. I dragged the body behind a collapsed beam, tapped the transmitter on his chest. Nothing. Dead channel. Either unlinked or running dark. 2 more moved silently through the trees, heads scanning, rifles up. I took the high route, dropped between them before they could aim, cracked one's faceplate with my elbow, crushed the second's windpipe before the first body hit the snow. Third one tried to run. He got 6 steps before throwing knife punch through his thigh. I was on him before he could scream. He begged. I listened. They weren't here to kill. They were here to confirm. Who sent you? I growled, knee pressed against his chest. He struggled. You don't know what she is, what those things are. Tell me who gave you the contract. The Black Emissary, he gasped. She escaped their control. They want her back before the collective finds out. I snapped his neck. The name wasn't unfamiliar. The Black Emissary didn't deal in open warfare. They ran manipulation campaigns, espionage, bioacquisition. If they want her back, that meant she wasn't just some refugee. She was property. I returned to cabin. She was awake, staring at the door before I opened it. The children remained asleep, unaware of the kill count outside. You weren't just his lover, I said. You were an asset. I was designed, she replied. He freed me. I sat across from her. Tell me everything. She looked at the fire, then back at me. The emissary created a generation of artificial hybrids, grown in stasis, spliced with the DNA of lost species and surviving lineages. I was part of Batch 9. We weren't born. We were deployed, used to infiltrate resistant colonies, to breed loyalty, control through influence. You were a weapon. I was supposed to be, until Dean found me bleeding out after a failed mission. He could have executed me. Instead, he carried me 6 kilometers to a safe house, treated my wounds, and told me stories of Earth. I didn't interrupt. He believed I could choose. So I did. I chose him. They tried to hunt us down. We fled for years. When I became pregnant, he refused to abandon us, even when it meant exile, even when it meant death. The emissary won't stop. They never do. I checked the scanner. The perimeter was clear. For now, you said they're half-human. Yes, fully capable of independent cognition, empathy, and accelerated growth. They're not copies. They're free, truly born. The implication hit me harder than I expected. Not just children. Proof that her kind, engineered, programmed, shackled by design, could evolve beyond code. And that meant the emissary would wipe entire sectors to keep that buried. You should have never come here. You would have come looking, eventually. I didn't deny it. A knock echoed from the front door before I reached it. This one wasn't subtle. A single heavy impact. Not wood. Not hand. I looked through the cam feed. A humanoid figure stood alone, armor black as vacuum, face hidden by a polished obsidian visor. One of theirs. I opened the door with a plasma, grenade in hand. I assume you're not here for coffee, I said. The figure tilted its head. Return the prototype and its spawn. No further action will be taken. Or non-compliance will result in termination of all local life. I tossed the grenade into the snow, beside him. It didn't explode. Just hissed. Then start with me. He looked down at the grenade, then back up. You're obsolete. Maybe, but you'll die with me. The visor flickered. 17 confirmed kills. 16 of them soldiers. 1 asset. Dean Harlan. My fingers clenched. We have his blood. We can recreate what you protect. You are irrelevant. Then why are you here? He didn't answer. I slammed the door shut and activated every defense node in the cabin. Alex was already ushering the children to the hidden basement tunnel. I activated the core lock. They weren't bluffing. They wouldn't use nukes, not with potential samples inside, but they'd burn everything else. They'll be back in force. I said, I know. You need to run. I'm done running. Then fight smarter. She looked at me, eyes fierce. You said you'd help. I did. And for the first time in years, I felt purpose ripple through my nerves like electricity. We began packing in silence. Supplies, gear, weapons. I uploaded an alert to my last standing contact in the Resistance. If anyone would listen, it'd be her. Your children, they're ready. You sure? No, but they'll have to be. We moved through the tunnel in cold silence. The ground shook once behind us. Then again, explosions, distant but deliberate. Controlled demolition. They weren't trying to kill us. They were hurting us. Smart. We reached the ridge before dawn, watching the cabin go up in flames. It was surgical. They left the forest intact. Only the structure gone. But they'd missed one thing. A signal beacon inside my suit had pinged a forgotten drone net buried years ago during blackout training exercises. They were still online, still armed. I handed her a transmitter. We won't outrun them. She nodded. Then we won't run. We rigged the field, charged the flanks. And when they came, we let the old weapons sing. Not for war, for family,